Woohoo! Welcome back to Big Head the Nerd, as today we take a look at tactics. Building tactics from scratch. The fun stuff. So, if you are here from the first video setting up your save, welcome to part 2. If you've come straight for the tactics, are you in for a treat? So let's get in. We've just started with our West Ham United save, and we need to build a tactic. So, how do we go about it? Before we jump ahead, let's just clear up what we will be clearing off today. So we'll be looking at how to build your first tactic in Football Manager and the ways to go about it. There are multiple ways to go about it. I will be showing you how to build a tactic from scratch based on the team you have currently and their sort of strengths and weaknesses, as opposed to a video based on just playing a certain way. This will not be showing you how to build tiki-taka football and playing it with whoever, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United. This is about looking at that team and saying, where are we strong, where are we weak, and what does that mean in terms of players, positions, and tactics, instructions, the whole shebang. So the first place I would start when building a tactic is always the team report. So this team report, you will get it from your sidebar, and it shows you, as an overview, the strengths and weaknesses of the team based on the coach's opinions. So as you can see here, we have strong leaders, we have good midfield depth, good attacking depth, good youth prospects is always nice. We have an aggressive and committed squad, good jumping reach, good defence depth. So we've got depth everywhere for the outfield guys. Joe Hart is a very good opportunity in goal. Zabaleta, good right back. Aaron Cresswell, good left back. So that's straight away saying, okay, cool. We've got good left backs, right backs, and goalkeeper. Obviously, we'll play a goalkeeper, but maybe we should be playing 4 at the back with, left and right backs. Work rate is good, but not as good as it could be. This is a really hard working team. That's nice. It means we can play with a bit of high tempo. Teamwork is a closely knit group. There's plenty of room in the transfer budget with 32 million. Lovely jubbly. And there's plenty of room in the wage budget, which means we can bring people in if needs be. Obviously, there's some teams you'll come into and you will not have wage budget or transfer budget available. So you have to deal with what you've got. And let's look at the weaknesses. So there's a lack of quality depth behind Joe Hart. So we know that we might need to use some of that 32 million to bring in a backup goalie. Decisions aren't great with the team. They lack quality decision making. Passing overall isn't great. And overall depth, there's not a great deal of depth, although there are good youth prospects. So maybe those two we can use to counter off against each other. Also not to be missed is this little squad depth overview down the side. Just gives you a rough idea of how many players you have that play in each of the positions, which will again give you an idea of what your formations are likely to be. So you can see actually we've got pretty good coverage across all the positions, but strong in the striking position, strong in the AML and AMR positions, strong central midfielders, strong DMs as well, strong centre backs, not so good the left and right back with depth, but we've got a lot of players there. So that just gives you a brief overview of the squad depth. If I were to move on, I would then move on to the squad depth screen, the next tab along, and this gives you, for the formation that you have selected, which will be your favoured or preferred formation, an idea of who is good. So it goes through the current ability of your players, which is in this star format over here. So what you can do is change this to all positions, which is what I like to do. This is based on the players' best roles. So if you were to play them, although you have a striker, there are multiple roles for those strikers. We will look at changing that later on when we get into the tactics, but for now, leave it as players' best roles. And it's the opinion of Steve Potts, the under-23s manager. You can change the opinion to see if it changes a lot, but a lot of the time, I leave it whoever's there. So as you can see now, we have all of the positions highlighted and the number of players that are available. It's the in-depth view of that previous small view. You have filters here you can change. You can change the minimum ability to see just the players that are 3 stars above, 2 stars above, 1 stars above, or no filter whatsoever. You can also include your under 23s and under 18s. Sometimes that's a good idea if you join a new club, because there may be a little gem in the under 23s who has fallen out with the previous manager, who's on the transfer list, who you might want to get back in. So I tend to select them all, select at least 1 star, depending on how your team's going. So you fill up that squad. And then let's take a look. So starting at the back, we have Joe Hart at 3.5 stars, Adrian at 3, and then not much after that. So that's the depth they're talking about. 2 goalies is probably enough though. If we were to move up, looking at left backs, we've got Cresswell and Masukau. Masuku. I always get his name wrong. Both at 3 stars. Ogbonna can play there at 2.5 stars. Zaba can play over there as well. So we've got some good depth there. Winston Reed, out and out the best defensive central. Fonte and Collings in there at 3 stars as well. Ogbonna at 3 stars. So look, we got a decent amount of central defenders and some good youth prospects coming through as well. And on the right, Zaba out there, 3.5. That's nice to see. Sam Byram is back up, and Winston Reed, Burke. So we've got some central defenders that can play out there if need be as well. So a lot of central defenders. So we've got 4. So that could lead us to playing 3 at the back. We might have enough depth for 3 at the back. If we're just playing 2 as the central defenders, we may have some problems with rotation. Trying to make sure we get them all in and keep them happy. But it's something to bear in mind. Looks like we need fullbacks as opposed to wingbacks, as Zaba plays much better as a fullback than he does in a wingback position. Same as Cresswell. But we can have a look at their roles later on. Let's move up to the midfield. So, defensive midfield. We got some players like Bakute can play in there. Noble, 3 stars and 2.5 stars. I think they play better though at central midfielders. Yeah, so you got Obiang, 3.5. Bakute, 3 again. So he could play midfield or defensive midfield. Noble at 2.5. Again, he can play both there. Lanzini can drop back if necessary into midfield centre. And Eric Fernandez also. So there's a lot of depth in that midfield centre. Do we play 2 in the middle, 3 in the middle, maybe some defensive midfielders with them? We'll decide that later. Looking at the wings then, we've got Arnautovic. Arnautovic who can play as the midfield left, but not as great as an attacking midfield. So, will we play wingers or will we play midfield left? Depending on who we put in here. Ayu plays at 3 in both positions. Lanzini can play out there as well. We then have Antonio who can play on the right. He can play as adequately as an MR as he can as an AMR. Arnautovic again. Snodgrass third on there, but out on loan at the moment. Ayu can come both sides, and so can Lanzini. So yeah, we may be playing with midfields left and right rather than attacking midfields. If we look at the AMC, the cam role on FIFA as it is, Lanzini out and out the best guy there. Eric Fernandez second, so not great in terms of backup. 3.5 stars Lanzini is second guy. Fernandez is only at 2.5. So if we were to play with an attacking midfield central, we need some backup there. We got some younger players. Hasanbeganovic, I think. He can play in there as well. You can do a job, but quality depth is what we need. And then we move on to the strikers. We've got Hernandez 4 stars, Carroll 3, and Sarko 3. 3 fairly decent strikers would lead me to go for a 2 up front. So maybe we go for a 4-4-2. Keep it simple. Lanzini, we may not get the best out of him in that role, but we could go 4 at the back, 4 across the middle, and 2 up top, and see how that works out. They're the sort of things you need to be thinking about as you're going through and looking at these teams, is where will these players slot into a formation, and we can then go in and build that. So this screen gives you an idea of the players you have at your disposal in their best roles. Where have we got the depth? Where are we likely to be able to build a formation from? The next step is to jump into the tactics screen, which is in your sidebar as well. And this will line you up with the formation that you've selected as your preferred formation. So you can tart and change this around as much as you like. There are presets over here on the right hand side. You can set to formations, or don't jump ahead, or you can click and drag. So you can move the guys around, pop them in wherever you so like. So let's start filling a team. So we think we were going to go with a 4-4-2, which is what we had here. We could also maybe go for a diamond. We have players that can play defensive and attacking. But let's start filling a team. So this is how you can move the players around, get them set, and maybe start filling those players up. So you can do this by clicking on the player, and it will highlight who can play in those positions, and you can click. You can also use the filters here to select the players, see which squad you want, whether you just want to select certain positions. Scroll down, and here they all are. So if you are looking to pick, I think it goes across. Which way does it go? I can never remember. It goes right first. So you can also do this by right-clicking on the players. So it's going to pick the right back first, so we can right-click on Zabaleta. It puts him in there. It's then Fonte and Reed, and then left back will be Aaron Cresswell, which may be the quickest way of picking them. Just right-clicking, drops them all in where they should be. Oh, that's not worked. Put him in there. Reed. There we go. And then out on the right, we wanted Antonio. We wanted in the middle, let's put in Obiang and Lanzini for now. Arnautovic out on the left. And then up top we'll have Carroll and Hernandez, ignoring the fact there's injuries at the moment. And then we have a load of subs that we can just right click away to fill up the squad spaces. There we go. Full squad, first pick team. Obviously, everybody's on holiday, but we don't care for that now, which is why they've all got little aeroplanes next to them. You can also see here in this player information or status information whether the players are injured and how long they're injured for by hovering over them. But for now, we just want to get set on a formation. So what you will notice is the circles, the different coloured circles. So these are player roles and how comfortable players are playing in those player roles. So this is where you need to get the balance of your team right. Picking the formation is just the first part. So the formation is picked mainly on how many players you have in which positions and the depth. So you can put them where you like. You can almost get away with any formation as long as it's not too crazy. If you are a team in the lower halves of the Premier League, you probably, when you set up, you don't want to set up with too many attacking players and not enough at the back. You don't want to set up with maybe 3 defenders and no cover. But really, you can get away with any formation. It's the roles that make the formation. So the roles are the most important bit, which is where we will come into now. So we can have a look at the player roles by clicking on this little downward arrow, and it will tell you based on that player what their best role is. And as you hover over each one, it will give you a little description at the bottom there of what that role actually does. I like to keep it simple and put my fullbacks on. So as you can see here, Zaba is actually a better wingback than he is a fullback, and you don't need to have full green roles for all of your players. What you can do to check them out, so although it gives you that information, you can actually click on them. So if we click on Zabaleta as the player himself, we can actually highlight the roles here that are required. So this is the player screen, stat screen. Clicking on Zabaleta, he is best as a fullback on defend. These highlighted stats are the ones that are key for that position. If I want to play him on a fullback on support, I can see again the stats that are highlighted. So his problem there, which is probably knocking him down on this, is the fact that his acceleration is 9. He's not quick. He's got good stamina, but he's not quick on there. So he still has very good stats to play that position. Teamwork's great, tackling amazing, marking amazing, anticipation good, concentration good, stamina's good. It's just that acceleration which is probably knocking him off, which means he can still play in that role. It doesn't mean he won't have good games in there. It means he's not. It's not his best role. So we'll set him up. We can then look at the central defenders. You have the options of pulled lane defenders or defensive centre backs, and again, same thing applies. Have a look at what they are and get your mixes. And what Football Manager has done this year is highlighted here, so you can see where we are covered well and not covered so well. So if on Josie Fonte I was to change him to a pulled lane defender on defend, you can see it strengthened the colour of that green very slightly between ball playing and central defender. And what it does is it just builds certain roles and shows you where you may be weak. So the best way of showing this is if we come, punch my mic. If we come onto the midfielders, it says because we've got central midfield on defend and on automatic, there may be some minor issues. There may be some weaknesses slightly there where we don't have anyone drop in. If we were to make Obiang a deep line playmaker on defend, a ball-winning midfielder on defend, that's more like it. It slightly removes those areas, but it makes it worse in front. So he will be playing deeper now in this ball-winning midfielder role, which means he won't be getting fooled as much. If we were to make Lanzini an advanced playmaker on attack, he then covers this area. So it just gives you an idea of where you are covered and not covered. The whole role situation is about getting balance, not having too many players on attack, not having too many players on defend, and not having too many players on support. You want to, depending on how you're going to play, you want to be able to keep a balanced team, essentially. If you're going to have your fullbacks on attack bombing forward, you're going to leave spaces behind and you're going to put a lot of pressure on these 2 defenders. So you're going to maybe want to have a defensive midfielder because you're expecting on an attacking movement these guys to get so far forward that you're going to need someone to help cover and help the defenders. That will then balance out that squad. So that's what you have to think about when setting roles. Also, things like having fullbacks on attack whilst you've got wide midfielders. Maybe you don't need the wide midfielders on attack, or that might then change the way you have your team playing in the team instructions later on, because you will want to, if your fullback's getting forward, you want to do certain things and maybe have your wide midfielders come inside as opposed to being wide midfielders. So you can do certain things in team instructions after to help the balance of the team. So let me quickly just set up these guys in a very simple 4-4-2. Fullbacks and central defenders. We'll go for an advanced playmaker on attack, and we will go for a deep... we don't want two playmakers. We want a ball-winning midfielder, possibly. On support. Wide midfielders, let's put them on wingers. Support. And winger support. So the wingers will be getting forward, and the fullback should be only coming to about halfway line. And then we've got Carroll. Oh, I've clicked on him instead of... So Carroll will play as the target man on support. So big man, little man up top. And Hernandez will have in as the advanced forward for now. We could play him on a poacher because he'll be right in and amongst the action. But we want him creating some chances. So there we go. If we were to look at this tactic, we would say overall we're okay going forward. We may have some problems defensively, which we'll just have to keep an eye on. We could get caught out behind the midfield here. But that's our first base tactic set. So that is a tactic with a fairly balanced team. We've got 2 on defend. We've got support in the wing, or sorry, 3 with the goalie on defend. Support around the wing and in the middle, and then we've got 2 attack and another spot up top. So we may be light on some attack. It may be worth making maybe 1 or 2 of the wingers, depending on who's stronger on attack. It may be worth changing Obiang to a defend just in case to bring him back. But we can do that and do those tweaks for some of the bigger games. There is the next step to look at, which is the team instructions, this button over here on the right. So this is where I'm saying you can edit and change. So that's your base formula you've just set there. This is where you tell them kind of how to play. So depending on how you're going to set up, depends on what you do here. We may play counter football. We can play controlling, attacking football. That moves and sets the benchmarks for these instructions here. So if we were to play on counter, say, we had hard-working team. So we have the ability to play on a bit of a higher tempo. They'll play a bit quicker. We have good width, I think, so we could play fairly wider. We'll leave some of these the same, the closing down. Passing directness, maybe go more direct. More direct then pushes the width out slightly further because they'll be playing longer balls. It also pushes the tempo higher because they have to run. If we're playing more direct balls, we might pass into space. Look for gaps behind defenders. Build up play, there's a lot of options here. If you're under the cosh and you are playing counter, you might want to clear the ball to the flanks. Just hoof that long ball out and hope your wingers get in there. We're playing slightly defensive winger or midfield rights and left rather than AMRs, so maybe that wouldn't be the best, but we could look to build up from there. Attacking in the final third, we have here, look for the underlap, look for the overlap. So you could have your fullbacks coming forward and overlapping your wide midfielders, your wingers. You could actually have them underlapping, coming inside and keeping the wingers as the wide men. You could have the fullbacks staying deep, maybe put them on defend or leave them on support, but you're not expecting them to actually contribute to the attacking phase. Have them hit their crosses early. So if you're hitting crosses early on a more direct passing, you're pretty much aiming for your target man there. You're trying to hit Carroll so he can nod it down to Hernandez. You also have options on how to shoot. Shoot on sight. Do you want to get as many shots off as you can? Or work the ball into the box? Do you want to try and take your opportunities from inside the penalty area and have your players play a passing game that gets them into the box? You can change the way your crosses are going, knowing how your team plays. If you have, like we do, a target man, you might want to go for float crosses. Keep them crosses up and high and hope that your tall striker wins them. You can whip crosses and you can have low crosses if maybe you don't have that height in midfield. If you've got a good balance, mixed crosses work. You can also have your team run at defence or not run at defence, depending on their dribbling ability. Stick to positions and roam from positions, whether they've got a lot of flair or not a lot of flair. Same with creative freedom. Be more expressive or be more disciplined. It's good for the start to keep this as standard as possible. So maybe keep on a counter, keep on a standard. Build a way you want to play, you want to see your team play. Is it direct passing? And that might be based on where they are. If you're playing as a lower top league side, maybe you do want to set up on standard or counter. You want to play slightly quicker football. You want to play more direct. You want to take your shots early because you're going to need to get all the luck you can get. Or maybe you're like one of the big clubs. You're a Barcelona. You want to play on control, on attacking. You want to play on a higher tempo or medium tempo. Play on a shorter passing or retain possession. There's a lot of options you have here, but the best thing to do is keep it fairly standard to start with and add and tweak as you actually watch the games played. So once you're done, hit OK. And that sets up team instructions. the last thing to do to add on here, but you shouldn't do these, I don't think, unless it's necessary to do so for you the way you want to play beforehand, is individual team instructions. So if you click on the player, you can add instructions. This gives them just specifically for the team. So for the for the goalkeeper here, you can change his distribution type, you can change his distribution speed, the passing directness. You can ask him to distribute to certain individual players, to distribute to your target man or to your playmaker. So you can set a lot of individual player instructions, which you will only want to do if you have very, very few team instructions, because you don't want to be countering your team instructions in here. So if we have our passing directness here is based on the passing directness in the team instructions. If we change that, it changes the team instruction as well, the individual instruction, but you can override certain ones. So you may have closing down more on as a team instruction, but you don't want your central defenders closing down more. So you can click into your central defenders and you can ask them to close down much less. So you can set certain people to step outside of the team instructions. Like I say, you don't necessarily need to do this when you're first building the tactic. It's best to build, get the players in the right formation, set your first level team instructions, the ones in here, and then play some friendly matches. Play some friendly matches, play them on extended or full match so you can see how the team works, and then start tweaking here and there on the team instructions and on the play instructions if necessary. Is your goalie just hoofing the ball long every time? Okay, let's just change it. Let's get him to play it out to the fullbacks and see if that helps. Is Lanzini taking too many shots from long range? Well, okay, if he is and he's not getting them on target, let's go in there. He's got to shoot less often on, I think, already. You can ask him to shoot less often if he wasn't already set to it. But yeah, depending on what roles they're in, some of them will be grayed out already, but you can ask them to change stuff, get further forward, run wide with the ball, hold position. So watch the games and learn the way the players play. And that is how to build your first tactic in FM18. There are set pieces you can go to, set pieces. I would recommend you go and do so, but I will cover those in a separate video because the default set pieces are terrible. But that's the second part. Your best bet is to get this bit done first. Try and get as much of this as green as possible. Fit it to your players based on your team report. And then get into some friendly matches. Get playing some foosball. But I will keep this episode to that. I don't want to go into any more detail on the tactics. It's best that you get in and play and tinker and learn yourself. But this will give you, that's the key things you need to concentrate on. Looking for balance in your team roles. Looking to put the positions in for where you have depth. But of course, you can go and buy new players to fill in those holes as well. Yeah, looking for balance, not having too many attacking, not having too many defending. Setting your first team instructions with an idea of how you want to play, and then start playing the game. Start playing some matches, and then you can tweak to your heart's content. So I will leave that there. I hope you have enjoyed and found it useful. If you have, please do leave a comment and smash that like button. If there's something you want a little bit more clarification on, please do comment below and I will try and catch it in the comments, or there may be a future video coming up to cover that subject. If you are new, please do consider subscribing, as there will be more guides and tips coming out throughout FM18 to get you on your way. I hope you have enjoyed. I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.